All right, we are joined now today on the On Film with Kevin McCarthy podcast with director, writer, incredible film critic Chris Stuckmann. Chris, great to talk to you today, man. How you been?
Great. Yeah, I've been watching your interviews for a very, very long time. I think I immediately felt a kinship with you in the way you talked about film, and the way you talk about aspect ratio, and of course, saving ticket stubs. And it's very clear that you have a very real love of film. Like it's not you're not coming through as a host that's doing this like it's a gig. You know what I mean? Like you're really genuinely the passion's coming through. So it's great to talk to you, man.
No, I appreciate that, and I feel the same way about you. And obviously, your story is remarkable and very inspiring. And it's funny because as somebody who's been doing what I've been doing for a long time, I've wanted to make films. I've made short films in college. I've made short films even in the time period that I've been doing film journalism and interviewing and reviews. But to make a feature, it's obviously an incredibly time consuming, but also your passion obviously comes through the work. And I love the film, and I can't wait to dive into the filmmaking and everything that you did with it. But I guess I'll just start off with this because as somebody who relates to you in terms of, like, as you mentioned, ticket stub collections. We obviously have collections both behind us right now, and that's why I'm glad we're doing this interview at home, because I wanted to be able to show off these collections, but also to see someone like you start where you started with, with film reviewing, and then now you have a movie literally in theaters today. As I want to timestamp that, it's October 23rd. Your film officially comes out tomorrow, the 24th, but you have showings tonight.
Yeah.
So when you woke up today, what was that wake up like, realizing, oh my gosh, my movie is now officially in the world outside of festivals and screenings?
Yeah, no, it's definitely it's a welcome feeling for me for many reasons. Obviously, this has been a dream of mine to have a film in theaters, and you know, I've been going to the movies since I was a little kid, and the experience was always so important to me, not just like with the films I was seeing, but like being at a movie theater and the vibes of a movie theater. The presentation will never be better than in a movie theater, not just through video, but of course sound. We talk a lot about like the big screen experience, but we need to also remember this is also about audio. Like to hear a movie in the theater is the best way you'll ever hear the movie too.
Yeah.
And so today to kind of know like, all right, we're doing it. It's really incredible, but also it's welcome because I'm excited to work on whatever the next thing is. And I'm excited to be like, let's close this chapter that's been the past 5 or 6 years of my life and start the next chapter too.
Hmm. It's incredible. And so what I want to do, as I mentioned to you prior to the interview starting, like, I want to give the audience an understanding as to your route to where we are today and having this conversation. So let's start off just kind of letting the audience know you started off obviously with film reviews. YouTube was a really, really big deal in terms of gathering an audience. Do you remember the first YouTube review and a movie review that you put out?
Yeah, no, it was for Ponyo, the Hayao Miyazaki movie.
Wow.
Yeah, no, I went and saw Ponyo with my friends, and I just kind of, we had spent our whole childhoods, particularly my childhood, doing a lot of short films and stuff on tape, and we had even made some features at that time, and so I knew my way around a camera, I knew my way around editing software, I had mastered iMovie at that point, so I knew like how to cut something together, and I just had this feeling, like when I saw Ponyo, I was like, I kind of want to talk about this movie, and I loved it so much, and it was my first time seeing a Miyazaki film in a theater. This was '09, and I just kind of went home and decided, let's try to just film myself talking about it. I know my way around a camera. I know how to edit, and I love movies, so let's just try to combine all of that into one thing. But also, I didn't really have a lot of close friends at the time that loved movies the way I did. I had friends that would want to act in my movies and kind of be silly and have fun in the backyard. And we'd go to see movies together. We'd see the Spider-Mans of the world and all the big ones. But the conversations were never really that interesting, afterwards. It was all very surface level. Like, that was a great time. Now let's go to Taco Bell. Like I always wanted more out of the
Yeah.
conversations, and that's why I started the channel, was like maybe I can reach out and find a community of people that love movies the way I do.
So that's 2009. Obviously, it's 2025. We're
Yeah.
talking today about Shelby Oaks, which is the film that is in theaters nationwide. It's worldwide, right? I mean, it's worldwide in that
We
sense.
are we are opening in a lot of territories. We're in like UK and Ireland and on Halloween, and then other places will be expanding later.
Amazing. And we're going to dive into all things Shelby Oaks, but you make that review in 2009. And then when do you start to notice that people are interacting with you in a unique way? I mean, like I remember coming across your videos and because I also started off as a film reviewer around 2005 was the first movie I ever reviewed like professionally or broadcast wise. It was Just Friends with Ryan Reynolds. And there was a like that I felt the same way. There was something about talking about films in on broadcast and even on television that really kind of I felt it was comforting to me to hopefully bring some type of education to audiences as to why this film works, why that score works, why that shot works. And that's kind of why I got into interviewing because I just come from a place of genuine curiosity of wanting to know how filmmakers make decisions. You mentioned aspect ratios at the beginning. So that first review comes out, and then when do you start noticing an interaction that's kind of becoming more and more than just talking with your friends?
I remember the first few months, every video I would make, it would kind of like max out around like 15 to 20 views.
Yeah.
And there would be, and I think maybe half of those were just me and my friends. Like refreshing, like, did anyone else watch? I would say it was probably about a year in. It was around the time that uh I did this video for Dragon Ball Evolution, which was not one of my favorite movies. And I think there were a lot of other folks who found that video and kind of like watched me after that. But it took 3 years before I was able to monetize my videos.
Hmm.
Because YouTube was very different back then in regards to how you would get monetization, and I didn't even really know what that meant. I had no idea that you can make money on YouTube. I didn't know that was possible. I come from like a family that like I was working on a school bus at the time. My parents were bus drivers, and my dad was a truck driver for a while. And like my first job was as a custodian, and so like my whole kind of the way that the Jehovah's Witnesses, the religion I was raised in, they teach you to learn a trade. They don't teach you to learn a career. They want you to learn how to be like a carpenter or a plumber or something. Like the whole thing is like you have to do like a working class job that's very that someone will always need no matter what,
Hmm.
because they teach that like this world as we know it will come to an end at Armageddon, and then after that the Jehovah's Witnesses will literally rebuild the world. Like that's their teaching. And so the idea is like you need to learn a trade that will be valuable after Armageddon. So the notion of making money in any way relating to movies felt otherworldly,
Hmm.
completely like another planet. Like that's an unattainable goal. That makes no sense, especially with filmmaking. I wanted to be a director since I was 14, but I was like, how? Like,
Hmm.
what does that even mean? And so like on those first few years of YouTube, it was very much so like I'm just enjoying this. And it's okay that I'm not making any money. I don't even know how to do that. I'm just having fun. And I am getting some friends doing this who seem to like movies in this kind
Hmm.
of intense way.
Hmm. And then the Jehovah's Witness aspect of it ties into your sister, and that obviously ties into the inspiration that's kind of surrounding this film, and we'll dive into that as well. I want to make sure we connect those dots as well. But you continue on, your film reviews start to become viral. People are starting to watch them. You're getting tons of views and comments, and it's got to be an interesting thing because a lot of people can share or not agree with your opinions. And I think that creates an interesting debate. There's nothing better than going to a movie and then talking with friends afterwards. And you kind of get that in the YouTube comments. I know comment sections can be kind of brutal sometimes, but I do wonder, like, initially as your reviews started to become more viral, did you start, obviously you're learning more about filmmaking through this process as well, speaking about the movies and then obviously interacting with your fans. So when did so Shelby Oaks obviously is, as I mentioned, there's a Jehovah's Witness aspect with your sister, but then there's also the viral videos you started to put out for this as kind of marketing early on. Talk about how that came about with the channel as well, because you put that on a separate channel, like almost like secret channels.
That's right. Yeah. We talked about me and Aaron Kuntz, the producer of the movie. We spoke a lot about the Cloverfield marketing campaign,
Hmm.
which was really cool to me. I remember seeing that teaser attached to Transformers, and there was no movie title, just a date. And everybody was like, is this a Godzilla movie? Is this a King Kong movie? Like, what is this? It was really, really, really exciting. And I went home from that showing of Transformers, and there was already all of the stuff online about this entity that may or may not be in New York City, a satellite that may be crash landed in Japan, and all of this stuff was already on the internet. And I realized that it was really exciting to learn of something that is coming out and then go on the internet and find all of this material, and it made it feel more real. And
Hmm.
so that was the idea, was like, can we almost self-start our own IP?
Hmm.
And so like we filmed all of these videos with the camcorder that's right behind me.
Oh, wow.
The Paranormal Paranoid videos. It's a Canon CR90. We shot on mini DV tape. And we filmed all of those. We spent like a few $1,000 and we had actors, just running around in Ohio to cool locations. And I shot all of those with them and put them on the internet without attaching our names to it. And in the hopes that maybe we could find some money for the script that I had already written, which was Shelby Oaks. And then,
Wow.
when we announced that movie, people can be like, wait, were the paranormal paranoids real? Like, what is this? What is this
Mhm.
thing? And it's funny because some of the initial comments that were on those videos, once like they started to kind of spread a little bit, there were actual people that we did not plant who were like, these, I think I remember them.
Hmm.
It was
Wow.
really cool. Yeah.
That's incredible. So, and again, just giving my audience an understanding. So, Chris, you're doing these videos for reviews, and then you have this idea, as you mentioned, after seeing Transformers and seeing the Cloverfield marketing, that you're gonna start. And you had written this script for the movie that is now in theaters for Shelby Oaks. I'm
Yeah.
sure things have changed, obviously, between that writing process and filming as well in certain aspects. And then you start uploading these found footage videos in
Mhm.
terms of that people don't even know are tied to a film that you're making. They're just there to kind of create that atmosphere of it. And so then when is the connection then made for you and then your audience that you're then making a movie and that those videos were actually marketing for that?
That's right. The idea was, again, with Aaron Kuntz, the producer from Paper Street Pictures, is that we would announce that we had acquired the rights to the paranormal paranoids.
Wow.
Like we've acquired the rights to this true Hollywood story or whatever you want to call it. And so it was this kind of backwards way of generating hype for something, which, when you have no credits at your disposal and you've got no prior film credits, you're just trying, you're going to find every way you can to get a film made. And I was very inspired by something that Scorsese said in an interview a few years back. I'm going to paraphrase, but he essentially said, don't, someone asked him, do you have aspiring advice for aspiring filmmakers? And he said, don't do what I did, find whatever the new way is to get a film made.
Hmm.
And that's kind of the approach we took, was the world is always changing, and the way that we interact with film is changing, the way we talk about movies, the tools at our disposal is changing, social media, YouTube, TikTok. There's always a new route that
Hmm.
people will discover in the next 10 or 20 years, and you'll see all kinds of things like this happen where you're like, how did they get that movie made? That's amazing, they did that. And
Hmm.
so for us it was like, let's film something that we can basically finance ourselves and hope that it can generate enough interest to get some, this is before the Kickstarter, but generate interest to be able to get some money for budget, maybe a couple $100,000, and just shoot this movie.
Hmm. And so you have these videos going viral. Then you announce that you're acquiring the rights for the videos that you made, which is a
Yeah.
brilliant idea. And then that announcement comes out. And then when does the Kickstarter aspect start as well? And can you explain kind of how that worked? Because you had over, I think, 11,000 people who were wanted to help get this film made.
So at that point I had a DP on board, Andrew Baird, and him and I were shot listing the movie, and we made blocking diagrams for everything. We made storyboards for most all of the scenes. And I hand drew most of them. I have this notebook filled with all these really crude sketches. And then we had like a professional storyboard artist too who did some of the more key moments. Um, and when we were looking at all of that, at that point, through Paper Street Pictures, I think we had raised a little bit of money, but it would have been a completely different movie in regards to budget. And we were looking at everything we wanted to do, and I looked at Andrew, and we just had this moment of like, we don't have enough money. This is
Mhm.
impossible. Um, this is just impossible. We are going to not, we need more. And then I kind of retreated back into my sort of dark place of like, I'm never going to get a film made. And then I kind of realized I had never asked my subscribers for anything. I had never gone to them and be like, can you donate to this or whatever. I don't have like a donate button on my channel or anything like that. It was like, it felt weird for me, but I decided to do the Kickstarter because I had this crew of people who were already working on the film in the pre-production space, and we were planning it, and it was like, we're here. Let's just see what we can do. And my thought was, if we can raise 250K, we'll get this movie made. And that was
Mhm.
the first goal.
Wow. And what's interesting about this is so the paranormal paranoids and we'll get into Shelby Oaks specifically in the film we learn that this group of people who are making these videos disappear, and that was essentially what the viral videos were supposed to be, that you were releasing kind of in secret. And then now you're making this movie Shelby Oaks, which is telling the story about the disappearance of the fake story that you put on YouTube that you fake acquired. I mean,
Yeah.
it's unbelievable to think about like the momentum and all the and how this all comes together. And then Shelby Oaks now in theaters this weekend. How does your sister become an inspiration as part of the story as well?
Yeah, I mean, like we talked about, beforehand, that this is it's a very dark chapter of my life. 12 years old, sister is disfellowshipped from this religion, excommunicated. I don't see her for over 10 years. And what I haven't really talked about that much is what that POV is like as a kid, as a child.
Mm,
And the thing that I'm most ashamed of is that I accepted that as reality because of the way that I was kind of conditioned, you might even say brainwashed, to believe that that is normal, to have a family member that has literally changed your diapers. My older sister, who's taken care of me. She's 14 years older than me. So when I was born, like she was almost a little maternal. There's a sense of like not just sister, but like she has actually cared for me
mm,
as a toddler and as a baby. And so to just be like, oh, yeah, she's gone now because these people are telling me she is something I carry a lot of guilt about. And obviously we've reconnected now and she's seen the movie and she loved it and she's like so proud and she's my biggest supporter. But there is a period of time where I just accepted that. And that really scares me that that level of
mm,
brainwashing is like people are capable of doing that to someone, especially a kid. And so throughout my life, I carried this kind of feeling of shame, guilt about my belief system, how I was raised. Because it's not just, I mean, there's a lot of teachings in the Jehovah's Witness faith that are quite terrifying. They're obviously very homophobic and, they're everything phobic. That's what I say. And so it's the type of thing that has caused a lot of guilt over the years. And I think a large aspect of this story came about where like I would like to craft a character in Mia, played by Camille Sullivan, that is braver than I was and that does the things I wish I did to try to bring my sister back into my family.
mm,
And I think that's what I did with this story is like Mia goes through everything to try to get her sister back. And I wish that I had been that brave and capable as a young teenager, to let my
mm.
sister know that like I still loved her and that she was still part of our family and you know. but it has a happy ending. We're back now, and it's great. So.
And the time between her being gone and reuniting was, you said 10 years?
Oh, I would say it was more along the lines of 15. I struggle
Wow.
with the exact year. But it was like I actually had to, and I haven't told this story. I actually had to hire a PI, a private investigator, to figure out where she lived
Wow.
because I didn't know where she lived. And it was in my 20s because I left that faith in my early 20s. And it was like I heard she lived in Europe. And so it was very much so like I don't know where she is, and it was tough.
What was it, as black and white as you woke up one morning and she was just gone?
Yes.
Wow. And and
Yes.
and
No.
and that's what's interesting about the film, as you mentioned, and that's kind of why I want to dive into the idea of horror movies being cathartic. There's an element of trauma that is really interesting to watch in the horror space. And specifically the idea of why we're drawn to stories like this, but as a filmmaker, then to make a film where a sister is searching for her sister who has been missing for many, many years. But then as you make a film like this, I have to imagine there's some therapeutic nature that comes with having this story told, even though it's a sister finding a sister and not a brother finding a sister. You're finding that catharsis yourself, I imagine, as a person.
Definitely, yeah. And obviously the film isn't an autobiography.
Right, right.
Which is why it's like it's not like a young Jehovah's Witness man who's searching for his missing sister. Uh, it's important to take inspiration from things that have happened to you and then make it your own fictional story.
Mm.
But absolutely, there were a lot of times while I was shooting the movie where I just felt, and this is such a tribute to Camille Sullivan as an actor because she really embodied a lot of the more personal aspects of the movie for me and made them feel real on camera. To the point where I would like watch the monitor and be crying because she was so invested.
It's incredible. I mean, I literally wrote a zillion questions for you, so I'm gonna try to get through as much as I can. I just wanted to give the audience the setup as to how this all came about. And then last question in terms of origin, when you were making the quote unquote fake videos, the videos that were put out there as a marketing aspect to kind of gain some attention to this story of a missing crew that was, and I find that interesting because I would imagine even at that stage of it, you're already thinking about that personal connection you have, right? Was it already baked in at that point in your mind, or did it kind of come about because the script was written prior to that moment,
Yeah.
those videos coming out?
I was writing the script and I was thinking about a sisterly bond, but not as explicitly as it came about when I wrapped and not wrapped, but when I completed the script and showed it to some folks. And when we started shooting some of those videos, it did start to dawn on me that subconsciously I had put so much of my experience into it. And I think it sometimes happens that way where you literally cannot control the floodgates.
Mm.
They're just it's pouring out of you. I don't you've heard of free association writing where you just like start writing and you're not thinking and you're just like you write random thoughts.
Mhm.
That sometimes felt that way to me while I was doing the script where it was like, oh my God, like all this emotional stuff is just kind of pouring out of me very naturally. And trying to then find a way to genreify it so that it like works as a horror movie too.
Yeah. I mean, and it's interesting because you talk about the camera behind you, and that's the camera you used to film those videos that were on YouTube prior to this film. So I'm curious, the movie that we are now see in theaters, how much of the footage are we seeing from the original videos as we see those videos of Mia watching Riley as she's trying to find her? Are those original videos from the original YouTube?
Yes, yes. We did
Cool.
not do all of that is from way before we even shot the movie. Like there's a sequence where Mia is watching a tape in her room in Riley's room. And we shot all of that before principal photography.
Oh,
You know,
wow.
n- for a number of reasons. One of the biggest is for our actress Camille to have something to actually act to. And it's cool because she showed up on set like ready to do this pretty long scene.
Mm.
And she looked at me and she was like, "I think I'm ready." And I'm like, "We got the tape right here." And she went, "Wait, what?" She literally thought that she was going to have to stare at like a blue screen for 10 minutes and just fake all of it. And I'm like, no, 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 we got it for you to watch. We already shot this and cut it together. And she was so relieved, but also just for the lighting of it. Like we want the light to hit her face at all the right moments from the TV screen. And yeah, I mean, we shot all of that about a year and then a year and a half, I would say, before we shot principal photography.
That's absolutely incredible. And there's so many things I want to dive into from sound design, score. The Newton brothers did an amazing score for the film as well. Obviously, Mike Flanagan's involvement. I'm always interested how a filmmaker decides when they're going to put to start the credits in a film. And I think
Yeah.
you're about 17 minutes in or so into the
Mhm.
film, and then you see Mike Flanagan presents, which is
Yeah.
obviously emotionally that's got to be really cool as well because we both, I'm sure, are massive fans of his work. But how did you decide, okay, 17 minutes in, that's where we're going to start the credits? Because there's an interesting thing to that, because sometimes it can pull you out, sometimes it can pull you in. And I'm just curious about how you decided to put it there, and then obviously starting it with Flanagan's name. It's kind of a beautiful full circle in a way.
Yeah. So, like, the way we initially marketed this movie was purely as a found footage film. We
Hmm.
told all outlets that it was a found footage movie. And if you go back in like 2021 when it was announced, you can see like all of the announcements are like Chris Stuckmann is directing a found footage movie, Mike Flanagan is producing a found footage movie, whatever. And it's like the idea was, can we set it up that way? And then in festivals, can we rip the rug out from underneath you and be like, also, it's this?
Hmm.
And that first Fantasia screening, before there was ever a trailer, it was like going to a Super Bowl, man. When that shift happens, the room like erupted. It was really amazing. Um,
Hmm.
and that was always my initial idea was, can we keep that a secret for like the whole time? As soon as the movie got acquired and the reality of marketing a movie for, as you said, a global audience set in, we realized it's impossible to keep that a secret.
Hmm.
But it was the initial goal was like, how cool would it be to go to a theater thinking you're going to watch a movie that's specifically from this lens and then realize there's multiple lenses.
Hmm.
So that was kind of the fun. And also it was in pitching a movie to indie studios, there was a lot of value in being able to say, hey, there are portions of this movie that can be shot very efficiently.
Hmm.
And a lot of producers would lean in and be like, okay, so we can spend a lot of money on this part. And then over here, we can be a little more tight. And that allowed, I think it kept conversations going for me when I was trying to convince people that, this movie should be made.
And I mean, obviously, I'm sure you've been asked this as well. And that's the thing is, we're doing this interview on October 23rd. Chris has been doing press for this forever, and it's interesting because like I'm trying to just build this story here for the audience listening. But in terms of like, I know you shot it. I think 2022. I think was the principal photography. Then there were reshoots. And I was wondering, and that was because after Neon acquired it, correct? Can you speak to that and kind of like how did you kind of feel diving back into the direction of a film that you already, I would say, locked at one point, I'm assuming, right?
Yes, it was wonderful. We had 3 days that we went back. We didn't even refer to them as reshoots. We refer to them as pickups. You know,
Cool.
when you hear the word reshoots in the industry, it usually tends to define weeks, like you're
Mm,
going back in for weeks
mm,
to genuinely open your movie up. But then there's also this term pickups, which tends to be like, oh, we want some more exterior shots of buildings. We want to do this, we want to do that, like kind of the kind of stuff that doesn't really impact the story, but that enhances the film in some way. So we had 3 days of what have been referred to as reshoots, even though they're not. um,
mm.
we had
And
three days.
by the way, reshoots are normal in the
They
industry
are.
and pickups. And for people, I mean, anytime people hear the word reshoot or pickup, like, oh, something must be wrong. No, it happens on almost every film.
No, it's absolutely true. Most big budget films have reshoots written into their budget before they even shoot. They
Yeah.
actually like set aside money for it because why wouldn't you? Like, it's strange. Seems to be the one art form where there's like people who are like, well, you have to somehow get it right the first time instantaneously. Like it has to all be explicitly perfect without wanting to change anything. And it's like,
Mhm.
if you draw something, if you paint something, you can erase something and kind of move it. It's like that's normal. It should be the same with film, and that's why it pretty much is. I mean, every big movie does have some element of pickups or reshoots. What helped us was I was so happy to go back, and I'll tell you why. We ran out of money
Mm.
on our first principal photography, and every single day, at the end of the day, our wonderful first AD, Michelle Mietti, came up to me and would say something along the lines of, Chris, we're going to have to lose a few shots today because we don't have money for overtime and we have to wrap today on time. And so throughout the course of a 20-day shoot, those two, three, four shots every day added up to stuff that I really wanted to be in the movie that I had to say goodbye to. And I had to mourn and like do a funeral for like these little moments. And so when Neon acquired the movie, Neon does a handful of things for every movie they acquire, and that's they always test screen it. Doesn't matter what the movie is, they test screen Parasite. They do it all, and then they ask for a hard copy or a physical or like a digital file of the script to keep on hand. And they read my draft for Shelby, and they were like, "There's like a couple things in here you didn't put in the movie." And as soon as I explained to them, like, well, yeah, we ran out of money and time, they really liked a handful of things that were in there and they gave me 3 extra days to do it. And so like we had a whole day with dogs. We had 3 dogs imported from Sweden, Russia, and Siberia who had very specific expertise.
Whoa.
Which was great. One of the dogs was from John Wick 3 actually. Britta was her name. She was one of Halle Berry's dogs. And then we had a whole day for blood and gore in a green screen environment. And it was pretty exciting to be able to do a handful of things that make the film look more expensive than it is, because again, we shot this movie for very little money. We are one of the lowest budget films of the year to get a theatrical release. And there's these little key moments in the movie that just punch it up a little bit, punch up above our weight class that I always wanted to be in there. But as I learned on an indie film, will literally eat your whole day. Like, there's one element of gore that took a half day during our reshoots. And
Which
if you,
shot?
without spoiling it, there is a death that occurs while Mia's watching the tape, a very
Yes.
visceral, bloody death.
Yes.
That is a practical effect, and we wanted it in camera. And so we were very, very careful with how we composited it. So like we had our actor, we filmed him being, then we had a mold that was made that we interacted with, and then we had our murderer who was interacting with actor and mold, and then so we shot it like 5 different ways so that the effects artists can then composite them all together to create something that is in camera. It's just like there's a difference between like a fully CGI image that has been wholly created from nothing and a composited image where you're filming real things. You're just kind of overlapping them all together. So it creates that more practical feeling.
All right, so because we're running out of time, Chris, I know you have a busy schedule with interviews. It's the day of the release. I want to touch on a couple things. The sound design in the film is remarkable, as well as the score, and those two can really kind of happen in a beautiful harmony together because you want the sound design and the score to all be atmospheric and part of the storytelling. But then you look at films like No Country for Old Men that don't have any score, and so you go in and out where you have moments of score and not using score, but also sound design. And those are very interesting characters in your movie that have to immerse us in the world. Can you speak about that balance?
Absolutely. It was amazing to do the sound design. We did it on the Fox lot, which was really crazy. Like they took me through the Alfred Newman scoring stage for a tour where Jaws was literally made there, the score
Wow.
for Jaws, and I'm just like standing where John Williams held his, baton or whatever it's called, and it was just amazing. Predator score there too. All
Alan Silvestri.
Yeah, man. All
Yeah.
these murals of like John McClane and Die Hard are on these buildings, painted murals, and we yeah, we had a really great week where the our primary composer is James Burkholder. The credited composers is James Burkholder and the Newton brothers. James is the Newtons' longtime assistant, and he's been producing their music for many, many years. This is his first name credit. And he was remarkable to work with. There's a story he did that I'll share with you really quick. During the middle of sound mixing, we were looking at a piece of music and we realized it'd be really great if we had this extra musical element that we just did not have. And we're in the Fox lot mixing the movie. We're locking in a couple days. James looks at me and he's like, I got it. And he gets in his car, he drives all the way back to his house, like 30 minutes, and grabs his cello and records that piece for us, runs back to the studio with a thumb drive and is like, here you go. And we put that cello in the movie. And that's that level of like indie film dedication that James brought to this, to be able to kind of be like, we want this, is it possible? He's like, yep, I'm gone. And that's the type of thing, like that's the type of thing most people wouldn't do, to just
Yeah.
like do that for you in that moment. Sound mixing the movie was very important, that we also play with where you expect there to be sounds and the removal of them.
Yeah.
The prison scene, for instance, like when she enters the prison on ground level, the room tone is normal. You hear some metal warping in the background. There's a little bit of air. You hear her footsteps. When she gets to the third floor catwalk, we took that room tone down real low to where it's almost silent.
Hmm.
And then when she steps into the prison cell, we have this kind of bassy undertone that drops out, and then the room tone is actually gone. And the idea was the closer she gets to this thing, this darkness, this presence, it almost has an effect on our perception of our atmosphere. And the removal of that basic sort of room tone and sound would hopefully create a more suspenseful experience.
That's incredible. I mean, those are the types of things, as you know, you've watched my stuff and I've watched your stuff. That's the kind of stuff I'm really into. Like, I really, I want to geek out about that stuff because it's so fascinating. Because these are all things that we're subconsciously and consciously experiencing that are all part of the immersion. I do want to make sure people know to see this in theaters, but I have to end on something that's really unique to you and I.
Yeah.
Both Chris and I have been collecting our movie ticket stubs for some time, and this is something that we've like bonded over on Instagram. But I have my collection, and I think you have yours as
Yep.
well. And
Right here, bro.
so I want before we go, I want to like go through a couple of these. What is your first ticket that you collected?
Okay, my first ticket for a movie went through the wash, but it is for the movie Imposter.
Wow, where is it?
Uh,
It's top, the top.
yes,
Okay, that's
it went
awesome.
through the wash, but it's Imposter with Gary Sinise.
Okay, and it's funny. So I bring that up because my first one was Die Hard 3.
Oh, that's such a good
Um,
one.
right there. I got Die Hard 3 right there. And it's in the middle there. And
Oh,
I
man.
remember, I don't know why, but that day I went home and said, I'm gonna keep this stub and start collecting. Do you remember why was it that film that made you want to take stubs home and collect them?
I'll tell you exactly what it was. I spent my whole like young life wanting to watch PG-13 movies and not being allowed. And when I turned 13, my mom convinced my very strict dad to finally let me go see PG-13 movies. So Imposter was one of the first PG-13s I saw, and I was like, "This is so cool! I'm like an adult now." So I wanted to commemorate the experience.
And that's funny because that happened to me similarly on my first R-rated film. So I worked at an
Yeah.
AMC and they all knew that I was under 17 and would not let me go see R-rated films. So the day I turned 17 was the same day that Blade 2 opened in theaters, Guillermo del
Oh,
Toro's film. And I have my ticket stub from that day that has my birthday, March
oh wow.
22nd. And I
That's
I will never forget walking up and going and just feeling confident that I had my ID, that I was 17 and I wanted that ticket because I'm sure you did this too. I used to have clever ways of sneaking into films. Do you remember that at all? Like, how would you buy tickets for other films and walk into other ones?
Yeah, it happened later for me because of the way I was raised. But like I remember I would get like I actually remember the first rated R movie I saw in theaters, and it was Brothers in 2008. Uh
Wow.
I had seen rated R movies at home, but that was the first time I kind of like worked up my bravery to like, this was a couple years before I left the Jehovah's Witnesses. And so I went and saw Brothers, and I remember being like, "Oh my God, every F word is just like ringing in my ears, like this is a real rated R movie. You know?
Well, all right, well, let's go through some of our tickets and see which ones we have similarly. I think you and I both agreed that we both have a Minority Report one, correct?
Yep,
Let-
that's on my first page right
and
there.
there it is. All right, I gotta find mine. Where's my Minority Report ticket so we can? All right, here it is, right here. We gotta compare these real quick. So my Minority Report screening was June 21st, 2002 at 10 p.m.
Okay.
What was
Uh,
yours?
Mine was it looks like July 7th, 2002, 7:20 p.m.
Wow. And then we're almost like, hold on, hold that up again. I'm gonna hold mine up again so people can see both of them. That is incredible that you and I both have that same ticket. And
Yeah.
so when did you start like putting them in the binder? Are they alphabetical or are they by year?
Yeah, they're chronological.
Oh, cool.
And they are by year. I've had this thing for, yeah, since 2001.
When you flip through it, like what's pick a random one and see
Okay.
if you have a memory of that story. I'll do the same.
Sure, sure, sure.
I'm gonna do, let's
Okay.
see.
Toy Story 3. So
Oh my gosh.
Toy Story 3, I remember because it's a 12:15 a.m. And I remember the theater was packed, and I was like, "Oh wow, all these like adults are here to see Toy Story 3 at midnight."
And you remember that one. And it's so funny because now so this is actually going to blow your mind. I know we got to go here shortly, but I was visiting my grandmother and grandpa in Fort Lauderdale. I was 10 at the time, I believe, when Toy Story came out. And so I went to see a movie with my mom, my dad, my grandpa, grandma, and my brother. But they wouldn't let me go see Heat, which was the R-rated film that was out on that at the same time. So my dad and my grandpa saw Heat, and then my brother, myself, my mom, my grandma, we saw Toy Stories. This is my first Toy Story ticket from
Wow.
95. And then I asked my dad, I was like, can I have your Heat ticket? Because I was already collecting tickets at the time. So here's my Heat ticket. And then eventually I met Robert De Niro and had him sign the ticket because
Oh
I
wow.
was I was geeking out about that scene with him and Pacino at the diner. And I wanted to know, were they really there? Because Michael Mann never shows a two shot. It's always over the shoulder in
Yeah.
that particular scene. All right, let's do one more. Let's do one more story thing and then
Okay,
we'll
sure,
go.
sure, sure. I'll find one real quick.
This is so fun, man. I can't believe that we both did this.
I know. Yeah, we definitely need to do this in person.
100%. All right, let's find one more random
Okay,
one and
yeah,
we'll tell a
sure.
story.
So again, this goes right into what I was talking about, but Cloverfield right there.
Oh,
Um,
whoa.
yeah, Cloverfield was very, very exciting to see because that marketing campaign was incredible. And I just wanted to know, what does this thing look like? What is it? It was a packed theater, a January for a January movie, one of the better January movies. So much fun.
And okay, then I'm going to end on this one then because this is a thing that I struggle with, and I hate the idea that tickets are not printed out well anymore.
I know.
Because if you go to a movie now, I went and saw Tron the other day. I printed out my ticket at the kiosk. The ticket was already faded the moment it came out of the dispenser. And so this is my ticket for Apollo 13 from July 1st of 1995. Look at the ink on that
Oh,
ticket.
it's completely crisp.
Yeah, and so I think it's because they used real ink back then and now it's like
Yeah.
laser printers. Is that what's
hmm
going? And so do you still print out your tickets now?
I do. No, and there's been some theaters where I go and they're like, we don't do that. And I have a thing. I have a whole thing. I say, oh, sorry. No, I need that for my records. And they do it. They're like, ah, and then they like go in the back and they print it. Like, because if you tell them that, like, no, this is like for accounting purposes or something. Like they're like,
Yeah.
oh, all right, and they'll do it.
I did that the other day at the Egyptian when I went to see Frankenstein in 35 millimeter. I was like, they were like, oh, you could just scan their QR code. I'm like, no, no, no. I want my ticket printed out. I
I
want to
know.
physically see it in my hand. So
We're definitely that's our version of old man yelling at the clouds.
I agree. All right, so this is the perfect way to end on. So now what you and I both need to do is go see Shelby Oaks this weekend, get a ticket for the movie from the actual experience, and put it in our books,
Yeah,
and then
man.
send each other a photo of the Shelby Oaks ticket in our ticket stub collections. Do you have one already in there or no?
I've got a bunch. Yeah, every single festival that I've gone to, I ask them if they do physical tickets. So I have one like for Sitges in Spain, for the Egyptian premiere. Yeah,
Well, dude, this has been an absolute honor. I literally had like 30 other questions just diving into the filmmaking. We got to do a part two of this at some point when the film hits digital,
I'm
just so
sure
we
we'll
can
talk
dive.
again.
Yeah, because I want to dive into the filmmaking and everything, all the choices that you made and how the camera worked, your relationship to your DP, and your. It's really remarkable, and the performances are amazing. You should be very proud of what you did, man.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that. Hopefully, we'll talk together on many other films, and then maybe one day I'll have you on my podcast for your first movie.
I would absolutely love that, Chris. And thank you so much for going a little extra on the time. And I know you're
Sure.
busy. Good luck and congratulations on your opening day. And thanks for making this film. And it's an honor to chat with you, man.
Thanks, man. I appreciate it.